Okay, so we know that the Torah tells us that that 50 days, the days in between Pesach and Shavuos, that we are obligated to count. That B'machar is Shabbos and the day after Shabbos, which the day of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of the Exodus of Egypt, was actually called Shabbos. It didn't happen on Shabbos; it happened on a Thursday, like this year. First day of Pesach was Thursday. That's the way it was in the time when we left Egypt. It was a Thursday that we left. But nevertheless, God calls the first day of Pesach, calls him Machos or Shabbos, and the day after Shabbos, count 50 days. So that fact in itself caused a tremendous amount in our history, a tremendous amount of problems, because there were tzdukim, people that we have learned about in Pirkei Avos that only understood, only interpreted the written Torah and not the oral Torah. And they only lived by the written Torah. They didn't accept the oral interpretations of the Torah. And when we explained that the word Mimachas Shabbos is really talking about the first day Yontif, they took it literally. Their sphera, their counting of the Omer would start on the day after Shabbos. So if Pesach started on a Monday, so then the day after Shabbos was like the 6th day or 7th day of Pesach. That's when they would start counting. On Sunday, they would start counting. If Pesach started on a Shabbos, so then Sunday would be day number 1, and we and them would be doing the same thing, but that would only be that kind of year. Most of the time, our Shavuoses were disconnected from each other. We kept Shavuos a different day than they kept Shavuos because their count started on a Sunday. Why did God call the day that we left Egypt? Why call it Shabbos? Because we know that Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. It's a taste of the world to come. Shabbos isn't merely a day of rest. It's not merely a day where we don't do things, but it's a day where we get to taste what it's like in olam haba, what it's like in the world to come, when everything is God, when everything is not about my creation, but everything is about God and the creation of His world. On the day we left Egypt, we hit such an incredible level. We hit such an incredible place that day was like Yom Shekulo Shabbos. It was like a day that was Shabbos. It was like Olam Haba, like the world to come. And that's why it's called Mimachos Shabbos. That's why the day of the Exodus of Egypt was called Shabbos, not because it was a Saturday, but it was because it was a day just like a Shabbos day. It was a day where we hit eternity. How did we hit eternity on that day? One is that we followed God. We were committed to God. Now, we didn't stay committed to God. We were complaining throughout the entire trek in the desert. But nevertheless, on the day we walked out of Egypt, we were totally committed to God, but we were also committed to each other. Remember, 4/5 of the Jewish people died in the plague of darkness. 4/5, 3 million people died in the plague of darkness. Jews, because they didn't want to leave Egypt. But if 3 million adult Jews died, what happened to their children? Their children were still there. Now, I want you to make a movie in your mind and imagine what happened on the day of the Exodus of Egypt. Moshe gets on the loudspeaker and he says, Jews, onward ho, we're out of here. Yeah? And he leads the Jews out of Mitzrayim. Can you imagine 7-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid, 9-year-old kid sitting there, no mommy, no daddy, and saying, where do I go? Where do I go? What do I do? What am I supposed to take? I didn't know we were leaving. Nobody told me we were leaving. They were scooped up by all the other families. When the Torah tells us that we left Egypt, chamushim, the word chamesh, 5. So the rabbis give different interpretations. One of them, the word chamushim, means that we went out 1/5 of the amount of Jews that we were. The other is we went out chamushim, chamsha tafla. We went out with 5 children. The other is chamushim, we went out armed, mizuyonim, armed with masim tovim, with good deeds. Those are not 3 different answers. It's all one answer. Because 4/5 died, every family of Jews scooped up 4 other families of kids. And we went out chamsha tafla with 5 families of children. Not knowing how we were going to feed them, not knowing where we were going to sleep tonight, not knowing what was going to happen. But we cared and worried about each other, that we took each other out of Mitzrayim. And that's what chamushim, we went out armed, in Masim Tovim, in good deeds. We were up here. We were on almost the highest level that you could achieve. Me'ein olam haba, from the taste of the world to come. And then what did God do to us the next day? He let us go, and he dropped us down to the 49th level of impurity where we were in Egypt. And he said to us, look, you just saw what you could be. You just saw your potential. Now go get there. Tispru chamishim yom, count 50 days. Every day, lift yourself up and get yourself up those 50 levels. Get yourself ready to get the Torah, which is level number 50, which is ultimate connection to God. This period of time of the counting of the Omer is a period of time of preparation for level 50, for the giving of the Torah. It's extremely joyous. It's extremely beautiful. However, in our history, during this time, tremendous tragedies happened to the Jewish people. Rabbi Akiva lost 24,000 students. 12,000 pairs, says the Talmud. They died from Pesach to Shavuos during 33 days. In the time of the Crusades, hundreds of thousands of Jews were murdered. This became a very black time for the Jewish people. And because of that, our rabbis added on a level of mourning during Sfira, during these 49 days. But for 33 of them, they told us that we have to do outward signs of mourning. No shaving, no parties, no music, no outward signs of joy. So one has to wonder, on the 33rd day of the Omer, there's a reprieve. It's a quasi-holiday. When the morning ends, we're allowed to shave. We can have music. We had a band last night at this fire. People can get married now. What happened on the 33rd day of the Omer? So one of the explanations of what happened on the 33rd day of the Omer is that the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. They died for 33 days, for 32 days, and on the 33rd day, nobody died. And because nobody died, therefore it becomes a quasi-holiday. You need to stop and think about that. I don't care that it's 8:35 at night. You need to ask a question on that. Why in the world are we making that into a holiday? It was in a time where people died. And just because people didn't die on that day, all of a sudden it becomes it becomes less of a day of mourning. It becomes an easier day to swallow, an easier pill to swallow. It doesn't come a day of rejoicing. Imagine if there was a day in the middle of the Holocaust when nobody died. We said, because nobody died on that day, we're going to make a yontif. Something weird about it. So why is that day a holiday? There are those who want to say that it's the Yahrtzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the greatest of sages. He began as the greatest of sages. He was a person who people would pray that their children should be like him. He was sitting around with a group of rabbis. They were discussing Rome and Rome's occupation of the land of Israel. One of the rabbis said, the Romans are amazing. Look at the architecture. Look at what they're building. Look at what they're doing. They're building marketplaces. They're building malls. They're building bridges. They're building roads. The infrastructure of the land of Israel is increasing because of Roman occupation. Second rabbi was sitting and listening. He didn't say anything. He knew the walls have ears. Don't say anything, buddy. And the third guy, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, said, don't be stupid. The reason why they're building all this and the reason why they're doing all this is for their own good. They're not doing it for you. They're doing it because they need money. That's why they're building roads and tolls, because they're and bridges, because they're charging tolls. Marketplaces, they need a place to put their prostitutes. They put them in marketplaces. That's why they're building marketplaces. This is all for their own aggrandizement. It's not for you. Word got back to the Romans that Rabbi Shiur bar Yochai said that, and the Romans wanted to kill him. There was a price put out on his head. Rabbi Shiur bar Yochai hid inside of the Beis HaMedrash, inside of the study hall, but he was afraid that they were going to find him. He and his son ran out of town, and they found a cave. Miraculously, in front of the cave grew a carob tree and a brook of water. And that's what sustained them. And every single day they would take off their clothes, they would bury themselves in sand, and they would study Torah. They took off their clothes because they had no idea how long they were going to be inside of the cave, and they didn't want their clothes to ruin out, to wear out. This went on for 12 years. Imagine what happens when you're focused on only one thing for 12 years. There's no internet. It's not even like they had a lousy connection. There was no internet. There was no anything, no communication, to the extent that Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, needed to get them the information that the war was over. They weren't after them anymore. The emperor had died, and he wasn't pursuing them. So he dressed up as a merchant, and he stood by the front of the cave, and he said, "Oh, the occupation is over. The emperor died." So that's how Rabbi Shiur bar Yochai knew that it was time to leave the cave. But if you imagine you're saturated in spirituality for all these years, you can only imagine what you were like when you came out. You saw a person working, you saw a person planting, plowing. You didn't understand what that was. Why aren't you learning Torah? Because life is only about Torah, because that's all he knew. Can you imagine if for the next 12 minutes, you set a timer, 12 minutes, you would have no distractions other than Torah and thoughts of God? You'd feel amazing afterwards. I don't know if you could do it though. 12 minutes is a long time. Can you do 12 hours? Yeah, that's pushing it a bit. Can you do 12 weeks? Imagine going on a retreat, spiritual retreat for 12 weeks where there was nothing, no connection to anything. You had water and carob is what you were eating. Not little carob chips that were baked into cakes. We're talking about eating the real deal. Yeah, and you're sitting there for 12 months. You can only imagine 12 years. Can you imagine the vision of God that you had? Can you imagine the understanding of Torah that you had? Where everywhere they walked, the Talmud says they burnt up. Their holiness couldn't deal with physical things. A heavenly voice comes out and says, "Is that why I brought you back out into the world? To burn my world? Get back in the cave." So they went back in for a year in the cave, and that year was healthy because in that year, they were able to learn how to integrate the spirituality and the physicality. How to be able to look at a piece of chicken and not see a piece of chicken, but to be able to see another way to serve Hashem. To be able to take food, to be able to take physical things, physical activities, planting and plowing, and say that this ultimately is the way that I'm serving Hashem by sustaining myself, planting and plowing and taking care of myself. I'm serving God. And it's not two separate things. The physical and the spiritual are not separate, but they're actually together, and the one elevates the other. And Rabbi Shiur bar Yochai was able to reintegrate himself back into the world. He comes out. His son was not able to, though. His son came out, but he was still this holy fire until they saw the following thing. They saw a fellow running with two bundles of myrtle, and they said to him, what are you doing with the myrtle? So he said, "This is for the honor of Shabbos." Okay, but why two bundles? Because one is for Zochar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, and one is Shomer es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho. There are two words used in the Torah to describe the holiness of Shabbos. One, the commandment that says we should guard the holiness of Shabbos, and the other is we should remember the holiness of Shabbos. It's the reason why we light two candles on Shabbos, one for Zachar and one for Shomer. And so this man said, "This is why I have the myrtles." And they realized that this was a man who was living in the physical world, but he was taking the physical world and he was elevating it to the spiritual world. And it was at that moment that they realized that's the way it has to be. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, after spending 12 months in dirt, 13 months buried in dirt, his skin was eroded and was suffering tremendously. His son-in-law, who himself was an amazing sage, said to him, "Woe is to my eyes that I have to see such a sight of my father and my Rebbe in such degradation." And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said to him, "If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be holding spiritually where I'm holding. It used to be when you would ask me a question, when I would say something, you would be able to find many, many ways to knock it out. Now, when you say something, I find tens of ways of knocking it out. Intellectually, spiritually, he was on such an incredible level." And then the Gemara says the most amazing line. After they got doctors to heal him, he said, "Holy Israchishli Misa, since a miracle happened to me, what can I do for other people? I want to pay it forward. God made a miracle for me. I want to do something for others that nobody else could do. I want to help them with something." The Talmud says what he did. It's not so important. It was a town that lost, there was a person that was buried in the town, but they forgot where the person was buried. The problem is that when you have a field, a large field like that in the center of town, the Kohanim can't walk through the field because there is a possibility that there might be impurity that's buried in the field. So this entire large area of the town, it became difficult to live in this town because if you were a Kohen, you couldn't go through most of the town. Because of his incredible holiness, he was able to tell exactly where that grave was. And that was one of the things that he did to help other people. There are those who want to say Lag BaOmer is the day of the Yahrtzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This great holy Tana, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, wrote a book called the Zohar. The Zohar is the basis of all Kabbalistic understanding. It is the basis of the esoteric, deeper understanding level of Torah. He had that enlightenment because he was inside of the cave for those years, learning Torah, learning just exclusively Torah. He was able to see things that others couldn't see. And he left in this world, in his wake, the legacy that he left was this book of the Zohar, which we can't live without in trying to understand the pnimius, the inside track of Torah. Some say today is his Yahrtzeit. Whether it is Yahrtzeit or not doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, we recognize that his passing from the world left behind such incredible light. But you have to ask the $1,000,000 question. If it's his Yahrtzeit, what are we dancing and singing for? What are we celebrating? We don't celebrate a Yahrtzeit. Anybody here who commemorates a Yahrtzeit knows that a Yahrtzeit is a miserable day. It's a miserable day. But it's a miserable day because whatever you feel, you're thinking of your loved one. And you're thinking of them, you're sort of concentrating. It's hard. That's all. It's never the best of days. Why are we making such a party on the Yahrtzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? So it doesn't matter how you explain this day, whether you tell me it's connected to Rabbi Akiva and his students, or whether you tell me it's connected to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who, by the way, when Rabbi Akiva, after he lost the loss of 24,000 students, what did Rabbi Akiva do? He picked himself up, he went south, and there were 5 students there. One of them was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And he put together another yeshiva. And from that yeshiva, everything that we study and learn, every bit of Torah that we have, comes from those 5 students. So whether you tell me it's about Rabbi Akiva, or whether you tell me it's about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, why are we making a holiday out of Lag BaOmer? Everybody's got the question? It only took me 25 minutes to ask it. But why a holiday on Lag BaOmer? So I'm going to tell you something amazing. If you ever heard me talk about Sfira, Lag BaOmer, the counting of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, you've heard me talk about the fact that Rabbi Akiva started a second yeshiva. Remember who Rabbi Akiva was. Rabbi Akiva was a man who walked around saying, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha zaklal gadol b'Torah. Love your neighbors yourself. This is a great principle in the Torah. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students. The Talmud says, why did they die? Shalonagu kavod zebazeh, because they didn't show proper honor to each other. Now you have a Rebbe teaching the message of love your neighbor as yourself, and you have students that can't show respect to each other. You rate the Rebbe. Yeah, you go assess the Rebbe. Is this a good Rebbe? Or is this a Rebbe that maybe should have a career change? Maybe you should go into jewelry. What does it mean? The Haftal Rech Kamochi walks around. Zek Klal Gadol b'Torah is the center of the Torah. He lived his life by that. And he had students that Lonogu Kavod Zebazeh. So he goes and he starts another yeshiva after the 24,000 died. Oops. Yeah, so, yeah, that didn't work. You know, I always say, my question is not so much on the 5 students. My question is on their mothers. What mother was going to send her son, her little yingle, to go and learn by Rabbi Akiva? Mom, I'm going to a new yeshiva. Oh, wonderful. A new yeshiva opened up? Oh, I wish them much success. Where is it? It's down south. Oh, down south. It's beautiful down there. The weather's so nice. Who's the rabbi? Who's the Rosh Yeshiva? Oh, it's Rabbi Akiva. What? You ain't going to learn there. That's a death trap, man. 24,000 students just died. You ain't going there. What is going on? Well, without elaborating, I see the Dafyomi sharks are spinning around.
Very serious.
The Rabbi Akiva, without going into great detail on this, but Rabbi Akiva, the message of love your neighbors yourself and the crime of not giving honor to each other are two different things. The Talmud wants us to know this, and the Talmud tells us that there were 12,000 pairs of students. 12,000 pairs of students. The reason why it doesn't say 24,000 is because they had chavrusas, they had study partners, they were connected to each other, there was love there. Love is you and I are the same, brings us together. Respect is, I recognize you and I are very different, but I want to understand that difference because I respect that difference. In that difference lies an ability for me to grow and an ability for you to grow, because when we come to terms and we come to an understanding of what the other one is about, then we have something to gain from that. No relationship can endure only through love. If there's only love, at the end of the day, there is going to be a hostile takeover. At the end of the day, it's going to be that somebody's going to have to lose a part of themselves in order to be able to continue to find that connection between each other. When there's respect, now I can deal with the fact that you're different. It's not just, I'm going to handle it. I want that difference because I want to see things from another perspective. I want to understand where you're coming from. That's what Rabbi Akiva's students were missing. And that's what Rabbi Akiva started with his next group. He based the principle of his yeshiva on man was created in the image of God. Man was created in the image of God means that every person has a divine spark. Every person is special and unique. And we need to understand that specialness and uniqueness. He started from the place of respect and then went to the place of love. You know what the incredible thing is? What would you or I have done if we were Rabbi Akiva? We would have hung our head in shame, taking it on ourselves personally, and we would have disappeared from the world. What did Rabbi Akiva do? Rabbi Akiva dusted himself off, picked himself up, and started all over again. And where did Rabbi Akiva get that from? From Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu fights with a malach, he fights with an angel. The angel is testing him. The angel is trying to destroy him, is trying to make him falter. And the angel succeeds in as much as he hits him in the leg. And Yaakov Avinu could look at himself and say, I couldn't protect myself. It's all over. And what did Yaakov Avinu do? He picked himself up, he dusted himself off, and he kept moving forward. We say that every positive commandment in the Torah is connected, every commandment in the Torah is connected to a day of the year. The commandment that came out of the fight with the angel was the commandment of not eating the sciatic nerve, Gid Hanosha. And what day of the year, say our rabbis, is that associated with? Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, the dark day of the remembrance of all of the tragedies of the Jewish people. What's the connection between the Gid Hanosha and Tisha B'Av? Because what happened when Yaakov Avinu was hit in the leg? He got up, he dusted himself off, and he kept going. What does the Jewish nation do when it takes a knock? What does it do after a Spanish Inquisition? What does it do after the destruction of a temple? What does it do after a Holocaust? What does it do after terror attack after terror attack? It stands up. It limps a little, but it dusts itself off and it keeps moving forward. And that's the awesomeness of Rabbi Akiva. That Rabbi Akiva took a hit, but it didn't fall down. We take hits all the time. Our lives, we get smashed. Our job, like Rabbi Akiva, is to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep moving forward. After 13 years of living petrified that the Romans are going to kill you, separated from your wife and the rest of your children, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai could have thrown in the towel. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai could have said, you know what, I'm done. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai dusted himself off, never lost hope, and just kept going. It's what we saw post-Holocaust. My daughter-in-law's grandfather just recently passed away. And there's the most incredible video of him talking about his experience in the Holocaust, but more importantly, the people that helped him rebuild his life after he lost his entire family, every last member in the Holocaust. I was once talking with a rabbi. I told him I hadn't seen him in a certain while. He said to me, yeah, I just came back from celebrating my 12th daughter's Sheva Brachas. My baby. She just got married. And we just came back from Sheva Brachas. So he said, and you know who was at those Sheva Brachas? My mother. A Holocaust survivor. So he said to me, I asked my mother, Ma, did you ever expect when you were in Auschwitz, when you were in the concentration camps, did you ever expect to be sitting by the Sheva Brachas of your 12th granddaughter? And she said, yeah, I knew it was going to happen. I knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to take care of me. I knew I was going to see this day. We get up. We dust ourselves off. We continue to have faith. We continue to have trust in God and trust in ourselves. And we keep moving forward. I don't know how many of you remember, but there used to be a commercial. These little toys that were rounded on the bottom. It's a kid's toy. But the line of the toy was Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And there was a whole song that came along with it. And kids would see this and they'd, I gotta have Weebles, I gotta have Weebles. They were the cutest little toys. They were just little round things that just bobbled this way, they never fell over. That's the Jew. Weebles wobble, but they never fall down. And when we see these shining examples, Rabbi Akiva, who on Lag BaOmer gave ordination, gave smicha to his 5 new students. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who brought incredible light into the world because he would never give up. That's what we take. That's the simcha. That's the joy of a day like this. That's why in Meron, hundreds of thousands of people go and stand in the area where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was. They go to his grave and they pray to grab onto some of those sparks of kedusha, to recognize that this is the way our lives need to be lived. We take a hit, we take a knock, we stand up, we dust ourselves off, and we move on. That's a cause of great celebration. That's a tremendous simcha. That's what Lag BaOmer is. That's the pnimius, some of the inside scoop of what Lag BaOmer is all about. Okay, I just wanted to share that, and
Appropriate.
just something to grab onto. Okay, next week we'll
Thank
continue on in the 48 ways.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you,
All right,
Rabbi.
everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Have a
So
nice
good.
evening.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Rabbi.
Have a happy Lag
Thank you,
BaOmer.
Rabbi.
Have a
Okay, I'm shutting down and I'm coming back on.